It's loading, but yep, there we go.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Avery. Good morning. Welcome to this public hearing for the Tax Committee. We'll start with introductions, starting with Representative Matlack.
Good morning. I'm Ann Matlack. I represent House District 92, which includes the communities of Cushing, Thomaston, South Thomaston, St. George, Matinicus, Cree Haven, and the Muscle Ridge Islands.
Thank you. Representative Bickford.
Thank you. Good morning. Bruce Bickford. I represent House District 63, which is part of Auburn.
And Representative Gramlich.
Good morning. I am Lori Gramlich. I represent House District 13, which is the lovely seaside community of Old Orchard Beach.
And Representative Perry.
Yes, good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Joe Perry. I represent part of Bangor and part of in the main house. And as we get going, I'm going to mute my picture video to preserve my bandwidth, but I promise you I'll be here listening.
Great. Senator Pouliot.
Yeah, good morning. State Senator Matt Pouliot, represent Senate District 15, Augusta, China, Oakland, Sydney, and Vassar.
Excellent. And Senator Libby.
Good morning. My name is Nate Libby, and I represent all of the people of Lewiston in the Maine Senate.
Great. And I'm Representative Mo Terry. I represent District 26, the west side of Gorham, and I serve as House Chair. You'll notice we are missing some folks today. A lot of them are listening in or trying to get in, and we will get started in just a second. I'd like to also introduce our analyst, Julie Jones, and our clerk, Avery Page. And we will start this morning with LD 527, an act to exempt MaineCare Appendix C private non-medical institutions from the service provider tax. And Senator Vitelli is here to present. Welcome, Senator.
Good morning. Thank you. Representative Terry, esteemed members of the Taxation Committee. My name is Eloise Vitelli and I represent Senate District 23, which includes all of Saginaw County and the town of Dresden in Lincoln County, and I reside in Aroustic. I'm here before you today to introduce LD 527, an act to exempt MaineCare Appendix C private non-medical institutions from the service provider tax. For Mainers in need of assisted living arrangements, private non-medical institutions provide a necessary service. Most of the Mainers who choose this option are older or are living with a disability. Aging is not inexpensive, and the level of care we need as we age is often unpredictable and unpredictably expensive. Over the past several years, I've heard from many of my constituents about some of these unexpected costs. One concern I've heard time and again concerns the service provider tax. The additional burden the service provider tax places on individuals and families can reach into the hundreds of dollars on each monthly bill. For most who don't understand why this additional charge is on their bill, this can be confusing and alarming. As I heard from one constituent whose spouse was residing in a PNMI in Brunswick, every month we get a bill that includes over $600 of state tax. I don't understand this, since I thought that this sort of tax was on lodgings and accommodations like motels and hotels, not essentially on dwellings on health services or health services. Anything you can do to help mitigate this large expense, which is on top of very large expenses for essential care for my spouse, would be greatly appreciated. I shared that story with this committee back in 2019 when I first submitted this bill. That bill was later amended to instead direct the Department of Health and Human Services and other relevant departments to study alternatives to the service provider tax. I'm once again asking the committee to revisit this issue on behalf of my constituents and others, and this time to choose to eliminate this tax for these facilities. I am cognizant of the budget constraints our state is facing right now. However, I'm also cognizant of the financial difficulties so many Mainers face. especially those who are in need of assisted living services. We must keep working to make aging and illness more affordable in our state. As the oldest state in the nation, this is absolutely critical to our health as individuals and our health as a state. I thank you for your consideration of this bill, and I would be happy to try and answer any questions, although I think there will be those coming behind me who may have more detailed understanding. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. It looks like
Did you call on me, Madam Chair?
I did, yes.
There's a lot of echo.
Yeah.
Thank you, Senator Vitelli, for bringing this to our attention. I want to make sure that I understand. This is simply for private non-medical under the Medicaid program. It wouldn't be applicable to folks who are in these facilities who are paying private pay?
Yes, although it's a little complicated, and I would defer to my colleague, I think Rich Erb is in the waiting room, who can speak more specifically to the distinctions between those two facilities.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I'll wait for Mr. to perhaps provide his testimony, because to your point in your testimony that folks who are needing assisted living, regardless of their payment source, in my opinion, ought not to be taxed on it, but that might be a different conversation. So I'll look forward to hearing from others who come behind you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Any other questions for Senator Vitelli? Seeing none, thank you very much for your testimony. You're welcome to stay while we go through your bill. Next up in favor is Richard Erb. Good morning.
Good morning. Representative Terry, members of the committee, my name is Rick Erb, and I am the president and CEO of the Maine Healthcare Association. We represent long-term care facilities, nursing homes, and assisted living facilities, which include PNMIs. I'm here today to support LD 527. Want to thank Senator Vitelli for keeping this issue alive. I appreciate her memory on this one because it's been around for a while. I'd like to also provide some background on the tax, and we'll be happy to answer questions. This tax has some similarity to the provider tax that has been imposed on nursing homes since 2002, but with important distinctions. Maine is one of 40 states that have instituted a tax on nursing homes, which is sometimes referred to as tax and match. Essentially, tax revenue is generated based on the nursing home's gross receipts. Because nursing home taxes are an allowable expense under Medicaid, the facility is then reimbursed using a combination of state and federal funds. This allows the state to retain a significant portion of the tax for the general fund. PNMIs are assisted living facilities that accept Medicaid, also known as MaineCare. Appendix C PNMIs serve an elderly population that is similar to residents of nursing homes. Around a quarter of them actually meet Maine's high nursing home eligibility requirements. In 2004, the state faced another difficult budget year and came up with the idea of establishing a tax on PNMIs that is similar to the nursing home tax. However, taxes on PNMIs aren't cost reimbursed by Medicaid as they are in nursing facilities. This creates inequity and hardship for the assisted living providers who accept Medicaid residents. To try to make the PNMIs whole, Maine gave providers a general rate increase when the tax began. It may have reimbursed them in the aggregate, but not necessarily facility by facility. There were clear winners and losers. Making matters worse, the amount of tax collected has increased since then without corresponding rate increases. This is both unreasonable and unsustainable. In looking at this tax, it's clear to me that it simply doesn't work very well as a funding strategy. Here are some reasons why. One, the PNMI tax isn't directly reimbursed through MaineCare. The amount of tax a facility pays has no relationship to their monthly MaineCare payment. Two, The tax applies to all residents of the PNMI, including those who are private pay. This 6% tax appears on their monthly bill and creates much consternation. Based on the calls I've received here, I can't think of a more unpopular tax than this PNMI tax. 3, if a PNMI facility is licensed to serve even one main care resident, the tax applies to all their residents, including all their private pay. 4, the tax applies to any assisted living facility that accepts main care, but it doesn't apply to facilities that exclude main care and are therefore 100% private pay. This creates a disincentive to serve low and moderate income residents and strikes me as very bad, poor public policy. 5, although PNMIs accept main care, they also need to attract some private pay too. A typical facility loses money on their main care residents and makes them that up through private pay rates. In a competitive market, they have the disadvantage of a tax that private pay facilities don't have to pay. And 6, the percentage of main care residents in a facility varies widely. They range from 100% to less than 5%. It's impossible to adequately reimburse a facility when the tax is imposed on all their residents, but only a handful are paid for through Medicare dollars. This is a convoluted tax, and we have asked for its repeal in the past. When it was first proposed, the choice we were given was to accept the tax or take a straight rate cut that would have put some facilities out of business. I would also point out Maine Healthcare Association testified against this tax right from the outset. The inequities have only worsened since then. PNMIs continue to lose money on every main care resident they serve and are especially hard hit by wage pressures in our tight labor market. Rescinding the tax would provide needed relief to them and at the same time eliminate a poorly conceived and badly understood budget gimmick. As such, I urge you to support this bill and thank you for your time. I would just add a couple of things and I'm happy to take questions too. I know DHHS is undergoing a study of all main care rates. We did testify in that rate study in opposition to this provider tax. We hope that it becomes a part of a larger strategy. I've always thought that this is going to be a difficult thing to extricate ourselves from. Perhaps it could be part of a larger tax reform effort. I don't know what if people have a taste for doing that at this point, but it strikes me that this would be one of the taxes you would want to eliminate and perhaps substitute something else. I guess the last thing I would say, I want to again thank Senator Patelli for keeping this issue alive and say that I hope that perhaps this is the taxation committee that finds a way out of this quagmire we are in. And I'll happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Erb. Yeah, I have to say I get constituent letters once or twice a month on this very subject. So I hope you are right that we can fix the quagmire. Looks like we have a question from Representative Perry.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Erb, for being here today. I was not familiar with all the pitfalls of this tax, and so I want to thank you. That was very compelling testimony.
Only a taxation committee can truly appreciate it.
Representative Gramlich.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Erb. Could a taxation committee appreciate this? I spend a good deal of my time in the Health and Human Services Committee discussing rates, and so I'm curious if do you recollect what the percentage of the rate increase was at the time, and was that intended to offset what the tax imposed was?
I can probably get you a more specific answer on what the rate increase was. As I said in testimony, and maybe I can clarify, in the aggregate it did. if you looked at the amount of money that the tax generated and the amount of the rate increase, they matched up. But as I said, for a facility that had, say, a small amount of main care in their facility, they could never get their money back. So there was a great difference of opinion, even at that point, on how facilities came out from this.
May I follow up if I may, Madam Chair?
Yeah.
Thank you. And I just want to say it out loud. I want to make sure I heard you correctly.
Mhm.
Regardless of the number of Medicaid residents in a facility, the whole facility, all of the residents would be taxed with this PNMI tax. Is that correct?
Absolutely correct.
And thank you. And in terms of the department doing a rate study, they've been doing rate studies for 20 years.
I've been here for them.
It's about time that we put this to rest once and for all. But thank you very much. This was very helpful.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Erb? Seeing none, thank you so much for your testimony. We really appreciate it. And I very much hope you'll be here for the work session because I'm sure.
I will plan on that. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. At this point, Avery, I'll have you just double check with me. It looks like we have nobody else speaking in favor of, against, or neither for nor against. Yeah, it looks like that's all I have on my
No,
list.
I haven't heard from anyone either.
Okay, terrific. Well, then this closes the hearing on LD 527. And again, I very much hope to see you guys at our work session. Next up, seeing who's in our waiting room, it looks like Representative Brooks is here. So we're gonna jump to her bill if you guys are okay with that. That is LD 1193, an act to exempt certain disabled veterans from a motor vehicle excise tax. And welcome Representative Brooks. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
How are you?
Good to see you. Good morning, Senator Chipman and Representative Terry and members of the Taxation Committee. My name is Heidi Brooks and I represent House District 61, part of Lewiston. I am here to introduce LD 1193, an act to exempt certain disabled veterans from the motor vehicle excise tax. I am introducing this legislation because one of my constituents, who is a veteran and works with other veterans, made me aware of this important issue. He informed me that currently only disabled veterans who are blind or have lost the use of one or more legs are exempt from motor vehicle excise tax. He has encountered veterans determined to be 100% disabled having difficulty affording motor vehicle excise tax. Many veterans travel to Tokus for medical treatment. We know the lack of motor vehicle transportation in Maine is difficult. We don't have the public transportation system like larger communities in other states. Having transportation to medical services, grocery stores, and many other resources is vital. Our veterans have sacrificed for our safety and the freedoms we all benefit from. Veterans determined to be 100% disabled by the Veterans Administration could use our support in the passage of this bill. And in that testimony, a lot of it came from the veteran who brought the discrepancy to my attention, and it was something I didn't realize was an issue. And I'm thinking like some people that would require a lot of travel for medical appointments, and also, as we know, in Maine, it's really difficult to get public transportation, and there are other issues with that as well. So I would appreciate your thoughtful consideration of this bill, and thank you for hearing my testimony.
I think you're on mute.
Mute.
Apologies. Checking in to see if anyone has any questions for Representative Brooks. And seeing none, I think you are safe to go, Representative Brooks. It looks like we have no one speaking for, against, or in favor, or neither for nor against. However, I will mention once again that our website has several letters, written testimony that I highly encourage folks to read. And Representative Brooks, thank you so much for sticking with us this morning. And
Thank you for your consideration of this bill and for all the work that you all do.
excellent. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
So this then closes the hearing on LD 1193. And then again, checking our attendee list. Next up will be, let's see, Representative Morales's bill, which is, let's see, where are we? LD 846, an act to promote benefit corporations. Welcome, Representative Morales.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Senator Chipman, Representative Terry, and members of the Taxation Committee. My name is Victoria Morales, and I represent South Portland in House District 33. And it is my honor to present to you LD 846, Resolve, directing the Department of Secretary of State and the Department of Economic and Community Development to develop and enhance educational and instructional content related to benefit corporations. As you can see, there's an amendment that I'm providing to you today with that title. You know those kinds of bills that present policies that will make a positive impact on our community, need very little to implement, and have tremendous community support and expertise? That's the kind of bill I'm here to present today. And then, after I present, I hope you enjoy and are able to dialogue with the amazing Maine businesses who will testify after me about their work and the importance of this bill for Maine. In a nutshell, this bill creates public awareness and education about the existing Maine Benefit Corporation corporate structure on the websites of the Secretary of State and the Department of Economic and Community Development. Why is this important? Maine has set some very important goals to reach in the upcoming years related to our climate and our economy, as laid out in the Climate Council and Economic Recovery Committee reports. We know that to achieve these goals, we need all sectors working together: state government, local governments, nonprofits, and the private sector. Benefit corporations are natural partners in this work because they have built into their corporate DNA a duty to their community, employees, and environment, and they hold themselves accountable to that high standard. I'm very excited for you all to hear from these incredible innovators about how they have been able to move beyond a traditional profit-driven business structure to a benefit corporation, and the many ways in which that decision has added value to their work and to our Maine community. Thank you so much for the opportunity to present this policy to you today.
Thank you, Representative Morales. Does anyone have any questions so far? All right. Representative Hanley does.
Yes, thank you. Just so we'll all understand the language, what is a benefit corporation? Could you give us a definition of that?
If you wouldn't mind, Representative, that the folks who are coming after me are the experts who can really explain this corporate structure. And if you wouldn't mind if I defer to their expertise to explain that, I would greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Representative Bickford.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning. You're saying that these corporations are already doing this? Is that correct?
Yes, there are many of the ones who will talk to you today are benefit corporations. We have a new statute as of last session that allows them to become this benefit corporation. But however, this Resolve is a little bit different, and it's about explaining it and educating it on the various websites where corporations, business entities go to look to become businesses.
So if they're already doing it, can you tell me why we need a study?
This is not a study.
Oh, I misunderstood. I thought this was a study. Is this
No.
something they can do on their own? They don't need direction from us? Is it something that they can do? It sounds like they want to. They need direction.
If you, with respect to you, I think they would be the most able to answer that question directly, as they are the businesses who understand this structure and are operating under it.
Okay, and Benefit Corporation, is that they manage, do they manage, what do you call it, pensions?
No.
Oh, okay, because I have a Benefit Corporation that pays me a small pension, and that's why I thought that was Benefit Corporation.
In my layperson's understanding of benefit corporations, instead of owing a fiduciary duty to your shareholders alone, these businesses have, within their mission and their values and their corporate structure, they have a duty to their employees, they have a duty to their community, and they have a duty to the environment. And they are very transparent about that. And there are metrics they have to achieve to get there. And there's accountability measures as well. And so that's to the extent of my knowledge about how this works. But I think you'll be able to ask a lot of these very detailed questions of each of the individuals coming after me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. And Representative Gramlich.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hello, Representative Morales. It's really nice to see you before our committee. And understanding that there'll be folks coming behind you that can kind of tease out some of the specificity of the detail of this resolve. If I'm reading it correctly, and you can certainly correct me if I'm misinformed, that in addition to what you're proposing, this your resolve would also provide a tax incentive for these benefit corporations. Is that correct, Representative?
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. No, so the amendment that I'm bringing to you today, which should be uploaded and should be attached to my testimony, does not include a tax benefit. It is solely about education and awareness. And we have worked with the Secretary of State's office and the DECD office to figure out how best to make that happen. And so that's specifically what this bill is about today. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. Really appreciate it.
And I have one quick question. Are you looking for help from Maine Revenue Service as well in this education piece?
No.
No. Okay, great. Any other questions for Representative Morales? Seeing none. Next up is Ben Marine. Here to speak in favor of the bill. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the rest of the committee. I'm excited to be here and excited to kind of share the importance and the value of this with everyone. I'll do my best to answer some of those questions. I think there are some other folks that are potentially speaking or will be submitting testimony behind me as well. But just to kind of answer some of the questions that came up first before I kind of jump into my whole spiel, I think there's a really kind of some important differences between benefit corporation and B Corp. I think there's a common conflation of the two, though they are both very linked. So the idea of a benefit corporation is that you're a company that is committed to those stakeholders, like the environment, your community, your workers. And as a benefit corporation, you're required to every year produce a public-facing impact report saying this is how we've benefited not just our business, not just our bottom line and making profit, but the community at large, the environment, and how we're impacting workers and our communities. So that's really exciting. Part of why I'm here and part of why this education piece is so important. So I'm here with Dirigo Collective. We're a media company based out of Yarmouth. And one of the things that we do is we have this podcast all about B Corps. And I get emails all the time from folks all over the country and here in Maine asking, how do I become a benefit corporation? Because it's part of certification as a B Corp. So B Corps, there's a third-party certification from a nonprofit called B Labs. And through that certification, it's kind of the stamp that like, yes, you know, this business does good in the world. Part of that certification is B Labs requires businesses, if possible, to become a benefit corporation as well, which is part of that legally binding commitment to impacting all stakeholders in a positive way. So folks email all the time asking like, how do I become a benefit corporation? Like, what are all the details? And my response is always, it's very different state by state. Go to your state website. They'll have information there that you can resource and learn more. It's tough in states that don't have that, that don't have that resource, that do have benefit corporation legislation. We're one of those states. So when people ask me here locally, it's hard. And I'll own, you know, as we're ourselves as a business working through our own B Corp certification and also looking into benefit corporation, we have struggled with finding information on how to kind of navigate that. And so why we think this is so important to be promoting and making sure that there's education and information on the state agency sites, and so that people can go and get those questions answered, and also help promote more businesses aspiring to become benefit corporations. Because in doing that, we believe that it's going to help the state of Maine attract more young professionals, which is, you know, who we hire, and also as a company that employs a lot of families. You know, we're a very family-oriented company. We want to leave this state that we love so much. I mean, our business is literally named Dirigo. Like, we believe so strongly in this state and everything that's going on here. We want to leave the best opportunity, environment, communities to our kids, right? And so so this is about supporting businesses and doing what's right, and promoting businesses and aspiring to do good, not just improving their bottom line.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your testimony. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Marine, Representative Gramlich?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Marine, for kind of teasing that out a little bit. So can you help us understand, and you've alluded to it a little bit, but the difference between a benefit corporation and non-GOs or the nonprofit sector versus for-profit entities, which for for-profit entities, the bottom line is to the stockholders. For nonprofits, it goes back right into the community. So can you help us understand how that differs, benefit corporations differ from those two entities?
Absolutely, yeah, and that's a great question. I'm so glad you asked it. So benefit corporations kind of straddle that line in a way because they are for-profit companies, and it's essentially using the power of business as a force for good. So if you're a benefit corporation, you're saying, yes, we're a for-profit company, and sure, we may have obligations to our stockholders, but equally so do we hold our obligations to stakeholders. So stakeholders being anyone who's impacted by the business. So the community, workers, the environment, anyone that comes in contact with, or anything that comes in contact with the company. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, and I appreciate it because I think there's some nuances, and as members of this committee are probably well aware, there's about 36 different distinctions in the tax code for nonprofit type entities, but I think it gets a little bit more muddy when we talk about the differences between nonprofit and NGOs and for-profit entities. And it sounds like benefit corporations would be something that kind of is a hybrid in the middle of those two. Am I understanding that correctly?
Absolutely. And it's great for folks that are like, oh man, I really want to start a thing, but you know, maybe the nonprofit route doesn't quite fit, but their whole purpose is to do good. It really is a great fit for those companies, and really is a way for a lot of companies to aspire to kind of to do good, right? I mean, and the big crux and what makes it great for consumers is that as a benefit corporation, where the requirement is that you produce an annual impact report, the public can see what is the impact that this company is having, right? And the more companies that do this, the more it becomes expected from the public. Like, oh, well, what is your impact on the environment? What is your impact on the community? How do you treat your workers, right? It becomes more of this like public narrative that just helps all of us be better. It just helps. And what's really been interesting too, that we found as a business working our way through B Corp certification, is that it's actually made us a much stronger business And it has improved also our bottom line. So in addition to doing good in the community and being able to really set up our workers for success and all of those things, we're also stronger for it. And so we believe it's a great way to really strengthen Maine businesses and really attract professional talent to the state of Maine.
That's really helpful. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And any other questions for Mr. Marine? Seeing none, thank you so much for your testimony. We really appreciate it. Next up is our Secretary of State, Shanna Bellows, followed by Secretary of State Bellows will be Erica Newman. Welcome, Secretary.
Thank you, Representative Terry and distinguished members of the Taxation Committee. My name is Shanna Bellows. I am Maine Secretary of State, and I am here to testify in favor of LD 846, an act to promote benefit corporations. I'd like to start by thanking the sponsor for bringing forward this resolve and express my enthusiasm for adding more information regarding benefit corporations to the Secretary of State's website. One of the missions of our department is to provide the public with the information they need to conduct their business with the state, and we think the goal of this bill would move us forward in that regard. We would like to offer a few suggestions. We would think it's important to emphasize that our role in the Bureau of Corporations is that of a ministerial filing office. So we handle all the corporate filings. However, we do not have a clerical or administrative, we do have clerical and administrative staff. We do not have program staff who advise those seeking to start a corporation about what a corporation might be or what the benefits might be. So to require our staff to explain the benefits of a benefit corporation would be really challenging because we don't do that for other entities, and our corporate examiners are not trained to field those sorts of calls. Usually what happens is when someone calls about what might be a good fit for them, if they were calling about the potential benefits of becoming a benefit corporation, we would suggest that a filer would contact their private attorney or a tax professional to answer those questions. And we would be delighted to post resources on our website, including this information about benefit corporations. It is, again, important to note that our clerical and administrative staff, our corporate examiners, don't have the expertise to create original content like a step-by-step guide or frequently asked questions, but we would be happy to add content that had been vetted to our website. As for adding a list of benefit corporations on our website, we would be happy to do that, but we would need a technical amendment to amend Chapter 18, and we're happy to work with the committee and the sponsor on those clarifications. And last but not least, regarding investing in education for state legislators, again, we're happy to provide the information about what exists in Maine. And then that would need to be a collaboration with DECD or private stakeholders to do that public education. But in general, this is a very exciting concept, and we are happy to use our resources to make sure that people understand the information that they need to move forward.
Great. Thank you so much for your testimony. Anybody have any questions for Secretary Bellows? Seeing none, we're all set. Thank you so much for your testimony. We appreciate it. Next up is Erica Newman, followed by Fiona Wilson. Welcome, Ms. Newman. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. Good morning, and thank you, Senator Chipman, Representative Terry, and all the distinguished members of the Committee on Taxation. A special thank you to Representative Victoria Morales and Wendy Blackwell Moore, who are spearheading this resolve today. I'm so pleased to be here. I live on Shebig Island, and I'm the founder of the EG Group, as well as a board member of the Portland, Maine chapter of Conscious Capitalism. I'm in strong support of LD 846, as it follows on the original legislation that I had the privilege to testify for, LD 1519, which passed in 2019, which created the ability for companies to file as a benefit corporation. This act today will educate, and as was asked before, what is the need for education? I think that Maine has a huge competitive advantage to do this, and it's good government and it's good business. The vision of the leaders in the businesses who follow this path are the kind of businesses and corporate citizens that Maine wants and needs. They are extraordinary people. I'm relatively new as a full-time resident, but I have been blown away again and again by the leaders in Maine that I think are the kind of role models. And this is the kind of legislation that makes it easy to connect to those leaders and follow their models. By putting information on the government website, it is just one more sort of block and tackle effort to educate people about this path. But we certainly, the business community and all of those who believe in this, will be there right hand in hand to support this and promote this and educate businesses to know that this is a path. Just a few things about the legislation that was asked. Benefit corporations believe in creating value with values, in using business as a force for good, and by locking into their legal structure, benefit corporation status ensures that as a company grows, its values and ethics are not diluted. As a company does well, it continues to measure its positive impact on the full 360 degrees of community. Business leaders that are benefit corporations look to their employees, their customers, their suppliers, and all aspects of the environment and their environmental footprint in their community and everywhere the company operates. They also look down into their supply chain. What a benefit corporation does is take corporate citizenship very, very seriously. They do three things. They meet higher standards. Was asked earlier, they meet a trusted third-party standard. It might be B Corporation or a host of other trusted third-party standards that evaluate how they treat their people and how they treat the planet. Secondly, benefit corporation status protects shareholders by giving them the tools they need to hold companies accountable for their shared vision. Accountability and transparency is a big part of today's resolve too. It's putting the information out there so that it is transparent, so that you can hold these companies accountable. They're offering to be accountable, and this gives you the vehicle to be accountable. It also helps raise awareness and increases education, so that it brings together the community of Maine's most ethical, innovative, and forward-thinking companies under a legal framework. And with public education and support, this legislation will encourage the next generation of startups for this worthy path. I highly encourage you to be a part of this movement, to find out about it. There are many resources. It's new though, so that you, even being in this committee, you're among the pioneers of understanding it. The folks that are in the community for purpose-driven companies are looking at the many ways that you can act this out, and filing legally as a benefit corporation is that first path. A final note on taxation: there's no taxation changes in this legal structure. So benefit corporation legislation does not require changes to the state's tax laws, and it actually has the increased potential to increase state revenues because the types of companies, consumers, and employees that want to work for these types of companies is growing. There's a long list. What we hope will be on the Secretary of State's website and the Department of Economic and Community Development. It'll be very easy to see a list of who those incredible pioneers are and who those companies are. And each year, as part of their mandate, they put out a public report so that there is a way to track their progress and cheer them on. So thank you very much. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much for your testimony, Ms. Newman. Does anyone have any questions? Being none, thank you so much for joining us. Next up is Fiona Wilson speaking in favor of, and following that will be Fortunat Mueller. Welcome, Ms. Wilson.
Good morning. Thank you so much. I'm a longtime resident of Freeport, Maine, and you'll forgive me, but I work for the University of New Hampshire, the New Hampshire Public University, as director of our Sustainability Institute there. I'm pleased to express my strong support for this legislation because of their focus on all stakeholders, not just shareholders. Benefit corporations carefully consider their environmental impact, as well as how they treat their employees, suppliers, and the communities in which they operate. These are the kinds of companies we both want and need in Maine. They're the kinds of companies that are aligned with our public policy priorities and that are good for our economy and are good for all Mainers. My views about benefit corporations have been formed during a 30-year career. I worked for 15 years for large global companies. I understand the power, innovation, and creativity of the private sector, but I also understand how the single-minded focus on the interests of shareholders has meant that many businesses operate in a way that has unintended but significant negative consequences on people and planet. The challenges we face as a world today simply can't be solved by the public sector or by nonprofits alone. We need to fully harness the scale and the power of the private sector. Mid-career, I decided to go to graduate school because I wanted to help train the next generation of business leaders and to better understand how businesses can contribute to drive profitable growth for shareholders, but in a way that not only does less harm, but in a way that makes a positive impact. I've been engaged professionally with benefit corporations for 15 years since I started studying the emerging movement as part of my work for my doctoral dissertation at Boston University. I've been actively engaged with this growing community and have been incorporating them into my teaching, my research, and my community engagement through my role at the University of New Hampshire. For 3 years, we've run an experiential education program called the Be Impact Clinic, where we train and support students to work with regional companies to measure and improve their social and environmental performance. I've been witness to the growth of the movement of benefit corporations here in Maine and northern New England. I can speak to the growing interest on the part of business owners, but perhaps more importantly, I can speak from my experience working with thousands of undergraduate students. This generation is clear-eyed on the major social and environmental challenges we face in the world today. But they are also, luckily for us, a generation that wants to step up and help be agents of change. Generation Z are very clear. They want to work for, buy from, and invest in companies that they see as aligned with their values. Companies that are taking bold action on the climate crisis, that are prioritizing payment of living wage, and focusing on gender and racial equity. It's these kinds of young people that Maine needs to attract and keep, because this is the kind of values-driven workforce that will help create an economy in Maine where people and planet can both thrive. The passage of this legislation in Maine has the opportunity to serve as the best kind of example, in my opinion, of public and private and nonprofit sectors working together to make a collective impact. Thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Wilson. Anyone have any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much for your testimony. We appreciate it.
Thank
And
you.
it's okay that you work for New Hampshire as long as you live here. Next up is Fortunat Mueller. That's a fantastic name. I hope I pronounced it right.
Yeah, close enough. You can thank my grandmother because I'm Fortunat Jr.
That's excellent.
Welcome. Thank you, Representative Terry and members of the committee. My name is Fortunat Mueller. I'm co-founder and president of Revision Energy. Revision Energy is a Maine-based, employee-owned, certified B Corp with offices in Montville and in South Portland. And our mission is to help transition New England to a clean energy economy while alleviating economic and social injustice in our communities. I'm here today to offer testimony in support of LD 846, and I'm grateful to Representative Morales for her leadership in bringing the bill forward, and Secretary Bellows for her testimony today as well. In 2019, thanks to LD 1519, Maine became the 36th state to adopt the benefit corporation designation as a legal framework for for-profit companies committed to having a positive impact on people, communities, and the environment. As you've heard, benefit corporations reject the narrow and often destructive notion of shareholder primacy. That is the idea that a company's primary or sometimes sole obligation is to make its owners richer. And instead, they adopt a multi-stakeholder approach to capitalism, where the owner has an explicit obligation to consider its impacts on a variety of stakeholders, including shareholders, but also including others like employees, customers, vendors, community, and the planet. When a company opts to become a benefit corporation, this multi-stakeholder approach is built into the company's DNA and founding documents. Revision Energy is strongly committed to this idea, and we've been a certified B Corp since 2017 and are in the process of converting to a benefit corporation with the state of Maine later this year. And though there are only a couple dozen certified B Corps in Maine, and I think even fewer registered benefit corporations at this point, I don't think that's because our view that business can and should be a force for social good is the minority view. In fact, I think it's how most Mainers and most Maine businesses feel. I'm sure each of you can think of half a dozen or more small businesses in your districts who already embody this ethos, whether it's the small family construction business, the independent lobsterman, or even some of Maine's most iconic brands. They may not use the language of B Corp or conscious capitalism the way that some of the companies testifying here today do, but that's exactly what they're doing, and in some cases it's what they've been doing for generations. Becoming a benefit corporation allows those companies to embed those values in their corporate structure so that it is durable beyond the current ownership, beyond the current generation in the case of a multi-generational family business. And all of us benefit when we have more of these companies in our community because they take excellent care of people, they're careful stewards of the environment, and they generally take seriously their obligation to be a force for good in the communities where they work. The legislative resolve in front of you today builds on the Benefit Corporation bill passed a couple of years ago and asks the Secretary of State's office and DECD to make additional resources available to businesses considering organizing as a benefit corporation so that we can continue to grow that community of thoughtful businesses here in Maine. We encourage you to support this bill, and I appreciate the opportunity to provide testimony and happy to take any questions if you have them.
Great, thank you so much. Any questions for Mr. Mueller? Seeing none. Oh, Representative Matlack.
Yes, it just as Mr. Mueller was talking with us, a question came up, and it may have been one for Representative Morales as the Secretary of State. The Secretary of State was talking about adding information to the website, and she was also saying that her department does not have the capacity or the staff expertise to create unique materials to be put up there. Is there a standard? Is there a resource that will be providing this kind of information to the website so that the FAQs and other information becomes available, is vetted and is accurate?
I'm happy to take a crack at that, although
that's fine.
Morales can answer too.
You're up, so I'll let you do it.
I'm here at the mic. You know, there are a number of really excellent resources, both regionally and nationally, on benefit corporations that I think could be incorporated. Obviously, the state would want to do some work in vetting them. I would suggest, for example, Dr. Wilson, who we just heard from UNH, would be an excellent source of some of that information at the University of New Hampshire. There are similar clinics and entities at other public universities that also provide useful third-party information. I think, the B Labs, which is the entity that creates the B Corp certification, is a nonprofit entity, also has a lot of publicly available information.
Okay, so there is basically a standardized source where we could tap into accepted information that would be a benefit to those folks looking to become B Corps.
I think there is, and I think that's the idea, is not to ask Secretary Bellows to write original content, but to serve up content that exists.
Thank you.
And I would just perhaps ask Representative Morales if she can make sure that that's I guess that we're more conscientious of what Representative Matlack had just asked for the work session. Any other questions for Mr. Mueller? Seeing none, thank you so much for your testimony. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Next up, speaking in favor of is Wendy Blackwell-Moore. Welcome.
Good morning, Chairpersons Chipman and Terry, and distinguished members of the Taxation Committee. And thank you to Representative Morales for sponsoring this resolve. My name is Wendy Blackwell-Moore, and I live in Portland, Maine. And I'm here today representing Pine Pitch Consulting and in support of LD 846, a resolve to promote benefit corporations. Pine Pitch Consulting's vision is a world working interdependently where people and place matter. I assist mission-locked businesses with stakeholder orientation that value worker well-being, community impact, sustainable operations, and customer value creation. I support LD 846 for the following reasons. In September of 2019, the state of Maine enacted benefit corporation legislation. And as of March 23rd, 2021, there are only 12 entities that have become a benefit corporation. Barriers include a general lack of awareness and education of the corporation type, in addition to an absence of instructional and how-to procedural information for businesses to reference. This resolve seeks to remove the named barriers, enabling more businesses to consider formalizing their social and environmental commitments. Second, benefit corporation legislation has continued to be adopted and implemented nationwide in response to increased market demand and fatigue of corporate short-termism. 9 out of 10 consumers expect companies to do more than make a profit, but also operate responsibly to address social and environmental issues. Millennials and many others are seeking to spend their purchasing power with organizations who are addressing these critical challenges and demonstrating proof of their impact with transparency. Job seekers want to find careers with purpose-driven companies that align to their personal values. And in order to attract and retain those talented employees, businesses must create a culture that satisfies prospective employees' high expectations and standards. Because of these trends and more, the proliferation of businesses acting as a force for good is paramount to the success of Maine's economy and its future. Finally, collective impact will be magnified if the public, nonprofit, and private sectors collaborate and focus in on the challenges that Maine people and businesses face. More benefit corporations in Maine means that the state's climate action plan goals will be achieved more effectively and efficiently, and that the Department of Economic and Community Development's strategic plan to build a diverse and sustainable economy with the best talent will come to fruition sooner. Support of this resolve will advantage the state of Maine by aligning private sector interests with those of the state, ultimately magnifying the positive impact on people, community, and the environment we live in. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Blackwell-Moore. Looks like we have a question from Representative Gramlich.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ms. Blackwell-Moore, for coming. Given what Secretary of State Bellows identified in terms of her capacity within the Secretary of State's office to put this educational component on the webpage, is that something you might be receptive to working with the Secretary of State's office on to help facilitate that?
Absolutely. Thanks for the question, Representative Gramlich. We fully expected to be working in collaboration and partnership with both entities. We had reached out previously and had had conversations with both offices. We already have an existing working group that includes a representative from B-Lab. So, they're the expert. We mostly rely on their information and their support. So we absolutely will support content development and collaboration.
Great, thank you very much.
Terrific. Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. We really appreciate all the testimony today. Thank you, Representative Morales. And we have nobody else speaking for nor against, neither for nor against.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Representative Bickford.
thank you. Before we continue, can I just ask why this bill is before tax? Shouldn't it be before another committee where there's no tax implications at all?
That's very possible. I think we'll probably need to wait for the work session and talk to Julie about that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can quickly address the original act we submitted to promote benefit corporations included a tax reimbursement concept. We, as we were working through the process of the bill, we changed that and evolved it to purely education awareness. So I think it was a matter of process that it just became before the taxation committee. That being said, there is a cost of doing business, both from an actual bottom line dollar perspective and a resource perspective for organizations who commit to this type of public benefit to stakeholders. And so our original thought was that it would be nice to be supported in a way that would help offset some of that. We believe that that may be an opportunity in the future, but it's not what we'd like to pursue today.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none, this closes the public hearing on LD 846. Thank you again for all of your work on this. Next up will be LD, let's see, 1067. Senator Baldacci is our sponsor of that. Is he here, Avery?
I just brought him in.
Terrific. Thank you very much. And it looks like following Senator Baldacci, we will hear from Dr. Allen. Welcome, Senator Baldacci. Maybe welcome. Are you with us, Senator? Let's see. I'll give him just a sec to get in there. Looks like we've lost Avery as well. Oh, no, there you are.
I'm here.
Do you think you could help Senator Baldacci log on? Maybe?
I haven't heard anything more from him, so I'm assuming he's still running late, but I can give his aide a call. I don't think I have a number for him.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, that would be great. Oh, there we go.
Oh, I think we have him.
Senator, we can hear you, but we can't see you yet. There you are.
There he is.
Welcome.
Sorry, I'm trying to go between a couple of different committees, and I apologize.
That's okay. We all know the feeling.
Thank you very much. So I just want to introduce my legislation to institute a tax amnesty for the state of Maine. The reason I proposed it, first of all, is that when we got elected last November and sworn in and submitted our bills in December, it was clear at the time the state was facing a significant shortfall. And I think structurally, obviously, beyond the federal bailout, there are structural financial issues for the state, I'm sure, because there always have been. And garnering new revenue without increasing taxes is always something we should look out to do. The state instituted a tax amnesty in 2003. There was a smaller one instituted in the late, like 2008 or 2009. The one in 2003 was able to raise, according to the reports at that time, about $30 million. I'm assuming a tax amnesty at this point could also raise a similar amount 18 years later. This would allow people, this would allow the department to be paid, the tax, the revenue service to be paid, but also to allow a period of time where penalties could be reduced and some of the interest could be waived. A short period of time. Everything in this bill is similar to the one the state instituted in 2003 in terms of the time limits and the what was offered to taxpayers. Everything is the same as what was offered to taxpayers for a limited period of time in 2003. I think it's important now, after 18 years, that in the middle of a recession, in the middle of a pandemic where businesses have been struggling, this doesn't really take anybody off the hook. In fact, it will help improve overall tax compliance and raise the percentage of people paying, but allow them to basically get things all squared away, an incentive to do that, and it will raise money for the state. It'd be a one-time episode, but if we can raise an additional $30 million without raising taxes, I think it's an important thing to look at. I serve, as many of you do, on multiple committees. I serve on the Health and Human Services Committee, and there are hundreds of bills coming through there about unmet human needs. There are plenty of important areas where $30 million could make a difference. And if we could do that and improve tax compliance and raise some money without raising taxes, I think we've accomplished something for the public. So that's why I've offered this bill, and I ask for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions for Senator Baldacci? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. You're welcome to stick around, but I understand it's a busy day.
Yeah, I have to bounce around. I appreciate everybody's time. Thank you very much.
Sure. Next up to speak, we have Dr. Allen, who is here to speak against. We have nobody that's speaking in favor of. So welcome, Dr. Allen.
Thank you. Good morning. Representative Terry, members of the Taxation Committee. My name is Michael Allen. I'm the Associate Commissioner for Tax Policy in the Department of Administrative and Financial Services. I'm here today at the request of the administration to testify against LD 1067. Tax amnesty programs allow delinquent taxpayers with outstanding tax payments to come forward and pay their taxes without or with reduced interest liabilities or penalties. Maine has previously had tax amnesty programs in 1991, 2003, 2006, 2009, 2010, and 2012. Tax amnesty programs are used by other states as well. Tax amnesty programs can result in short-term revenue gains, but may have a harmful effect on tax administration and long-term revenue. Some portion of the revenue gained from tax amnesty programs would likely have been collected through ordinary state tax enforcement systems, including interest and penalties. Tax amnesty programs that include reduced interest payments, such as this one, provide more favorable treatment of delinquent taxpayers than those who pay timely. This can lead the public to perceive the tax system as unfair. Recurring tax amnesty programs can cause additional tax administration issues. Rather than encouraging renewed compliance, some taxpayers may not pay their tax bills and just wait for the next amnesty period. Frequent use of tax amnesties also tend to result in progressively reduced revenue collections from the tax amnesties. Given the potential drawbacks of amnesty programs and the state's strong financial position, it is the administration's view that an amnesty program is not warranted at this time. Administration looks forward to working with the committee on the bill. Representatives from Maine Revenue Services will be here for the work session to provide additional information and respond in detail to the committee's questions. Be happy to take any questions you may have now. Thank you.
Anybody have any questions for Dr. Allen? I think I do, if you wouldn't mind sharing just a tiny bit of the history of these programs. I guess specifically I'm interested in understanding if these were done because there was a problem that Maine Revenue was seeing, or if it was just sort of a shot in the dark to see if we could collect from folks that were in arrears.
I think if you look through the testimony I just provided and looked at the dates of previous amnesty programs the state had, you could see they follow our during economic recessions, 91, 2003, and then the Great Recession in the 6, 7, 10 period. You know, we've certainly have been or continue to be in an economic downturn in the US and in Maine because of the pandemic, but the state's financial position is much, much stronger at the moment than it was in those previous economic downturns. That the state doesn't have a cash flow problem like it did during those periods. Revenues are actually increasing. We have a revenue forecast coming up on May 1st that will likely increase the revenue forecast. We have substantial federal dollars coming into the state from the rescue plan. During those previous amnesty programs, the state's financial position just wasn't the same as it is now, and the need for cash was necessary, and an amnesty program was one way of doing that.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. Any other questions for Dr. Allen? All right, seeing none, thank you very much for your testimony. We know how you are. Thank you. All right, so Avery, it looks like I don't have anybody else speaking for nor against for this one.
No, and I haven't heard from anyone.
Okay, terrific. So this closes the hearing on LD 1067. Next up will be LD 1203, and that sponsor is Representative Fay. I know she's here. There she is. Thanks, Avery.
Good morning, Tax Committee.
Welcome, welcome.
Well, thank you very much. I think this is the second time in 5 years that I've been before this committee, so it's a pleasure to sort of expand my horizons, as it were. Thanks for having us, Representative Terry, and esteemed members of the Joint Standing Committee on Taxation. I'm Jessica Fay, and I represent the people of House District 66, which is parts of the towns of Casco, Poland, and Raymond. And I'm here today to introduce LD 1203, which is an act to amend the application of the excise tax on non-commercial watercraft temporarily in the state. My local town clerk brought this issue to my attention, and I agreed to work with her to bring this bill forward. When I went to the section in Title 36 to read up on watercraft excise tax, I was actually struck with how the statute read. The purpose of this chapter is to levy an excise tax upon the owner of any watercraft not otherwise exempt for the privilege of operating a watercraft upon the waters of this state. The excise tax on watercraft in Maine helps municipalities maintain that privilege for everyone, whether they are permanent Maine residents or visiting for the summer. I've personally seen vacation homeowners moor their boats for at least 2 months without registering the boat in Maine or paying excise tax. This bill would reduce the time in state exempt from excise tax from 75 days to 28. I'm not making the case for or against the excise tax. This bill is about fairness to Maine people who are paying for the privilege of operating a watercraft upon the waters of the state and asking those from out of state to do the same. I ask you for your support of this bill and look forward to working with the committee to make the code fairer for everyone who uses our precious resources. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Representative Fay. Anybody have any questions? Representative Matlack.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and welcome, Representative Fay. I guess I hadn't read up on this earlier before I saw your bill. 75 days basically means that somebody can be here the whole summer and never have to pay excise tax on their vacation boat here on the coast of Maine. Is this just, is this lakes? Is this ocean? Is this wherever you might put a boat? Where we might put a boat in around here?
This is for currently the statute reads that if you have a non-commercial watercraft, and I want to emphasize that this doesn't impact commercial watercraft, and there are some exemptions as well in the statute for other types of watercraft. And forgive me because I don't have it in front of me. You folks know an awful lot more about the nuances of tax, of this type of tax, than I do. But the goal is really to capture folks who have their boats in the state for longer than, say, a month, who really are here for the long term, not for folks who are just here, for a week or two renting on vacation, but really those who are here, they're not permanent residents, but they spend their summers here. And so, for instance, I would have to pay excise tax on my boat, but my next door neighbor, who's not a Maine resident, who has their boat here, for 3 months or more than 75 days, currently wouldn't have to pay that excise tax. So, so the goal is really to balance that out and make it more fair.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Representative Bickford.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Representative Fay.
Good morning, Representative Bickford.
My question is, do we have any reciprocal agreements with any other New England states like we do with snowmobiles with watercraft?
Great question. I think with snowmobiles, it's a registration issue as opposed to an excise tax issue.
Yes, I believe you're correct. Sorry.
But I can try to find that out for you. But I think excise tax and registration, while I have conflated the two myself, are actually different. You can not register your boat in Maine, but still, if your boat is here for more than 75 days, you still owe excise tax. And there is a sticker, I believe, for non-Maine registered boats to pay excise tax. But I will double check and make sure that that's accurate for you.
So you're saying that even if you don't register the boat, you still have to pay excise tax?
Correct. If the boat is in the state currently in law, if the boat is in the state for more than 75 days, this would reduce that to 28 days.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Representative Fay? Representative Hanley.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Hello, Representative Fay.
Good morning, Representative Hanley.
Yes, is there any estimation of the number of vessels you're talking about, or the financial impact that we're talking about here?
Fabulous question. I don't have that information currently. I would suspect that maybe the town clerks have a better idea of the type of impact that would be. But just for an example, if you look up in the statute, there is there's kind of a list of what that tax might be. So for instance, on a 30-foot boat, that excise tax would be $96. I did happen to look up the general cost of what it would be to buy a 30-foot boat, and in a quick internet search, I came up with something like between $18,000 and $500,000, depending on the kind of boat that you're purchasing. So, while it is an excise tax, it's based differently than, for instance, the auto excise tax, which you are all very familiar with. So it's a set based on the length of the watercraft and not necessarily based on the value. So thought that would be important information for you.
A follow-up, if I may.
Absolutely.
It's okay. I'll get this in the work session. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Representative.
You're welcome.
Hanley.
That's fine. Okay, gotcha. I do have a question, and maybe it's for you, Representative Fay, and it might just be for Julie for the work session. I'm interested if there is a sales tax on renting slips over the course of the summer. I'm thinking of on the Portland waterfront, there's several marinas that do long-term lodging essentially, and I'm wondering if there's a sales tax on that. No, Representative Bickford is shaking his head. If we could, yeah. Okay, great.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I have a slip and there's no sales tax on it. It's much like having a membership at a golf course.
Heard. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. Any other questions for Representative Fay? Seeing none, thank you very much for your testimony. You're welcome to stay with us if you'd like.
Thanks for having me.
Great. Next up, speaking in favor of this bill is Carrie Weeman. Welcome.
Hello, Senator Chipman and members of the Committee on Taxation. My name's Carrie Weeman. I'm a member of the Legislative Policy Committee for the Maine Town and City Clerks Association. I'm also the Deputy Town Clerk in Kennebunk. We support LD 1203 for several reasons. One, Representative Matlack nicely pointed out, our summer season really is only 3 months. So to shorten the excise tax exemption period from 75 days to 25 days better aligns with our state's summer season. Pleasure watercraft can really only comfortably be used for 3 months. And then this change also brings the non-residents who own property and have their boat here for the entire summer into the same compliance as the residents who pay the excise tax that helps pay for maintenance and calls for service on Maine's waterways. This will not impact any short-term vacationers who rent a camp for a week or two and bring their boat. And that's all I have. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much for testifying. We really appreciate you being here. Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Weeman? All right, seeing none, we thank you again.
Thank you.
Next up is Sue Look, speaking in favor of. Welcome, Ms. Look. Hi.
Thank you, Representative Terry and the distinguished members of the Taxation Committee. And thank you also to Representative Fay for sponsoring this. I'm the town clerk in Raymond and one under Representative Fay district. And we have 1 or 2 boats that get registered for Sebago Lake every year. It's more like 2,000 boats we register for Sebago Lake. And I brought this forth because we have a handful. It isn't a big number. It isn't a big dollar amount, but it's growing each year of the number of people that come in and say, I'm not paying sales tax. I'm sorry, not sales tax, excise tax, because I'm not here all year. I'm here less than 75 days. So they found this little loophole in the tax, and they literally come in with an attitude and are sharing that with others. We also have residents come in that are their neighbors saying, why aren't they paying excise tax? It's not a big dollar amount. Most of them are, as Representative Fay said, $100 less per boat. It's that it's spreading a bit, and maybe it's just a pocket problem in Raymond, but it just seems like 75 days is the entire summer, and 28 days is, as Representative Fay recommended, is closer to being a part-time, coming here just for a short period of time. Though even the short-time people sometimes need help on the water from our public safety department and whatnot, and we incur the same amount of cost if we have to go and help these folks as we do for our residents. So it just seems it's a fairness thing. It's the principle of it. It really isn't the dollar amount that for why I put this forth. And I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to you folks today, and I respectfully request that you support this bill, or at least something that will help us with this issue. And I certainly don't want to do anything with the commercial folks. This is only for the visitors that come every summer. And the ones we have that come in with a bit of an attitude come every single year and spend the entire summer. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Look. Does anyone have any questions? I do have one question. Is there an access fee for getting out onto one of the lakes at a municipal, I don't know what they're called, a launch, I guess, a boat launch?
The landing in Raymond, there is not a fee, but there is limited parking. So if you can get there early enough to find a spot, you can launch your boat.
And do you know if other towns impose a fee at their docks?
I know that a lot of every town has different rules. There are some where it's okay for only residents. Some it's for anyone. Some you need a permit. It really varies from town to town. Okay. And I only know that because I kayak in the summer.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Seeing no other questions, we thank you very much for your testimony. Appreciate it so much. And it looks like that is it for folks speaking in favor of. And next up, we have Stacy Kiefer from Maine Marine Trades Association, who is speaking against. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. Representative Terry and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Taxation. My name is Stacy Kiefer, and I am testifying in my capacity as director for the Maine Marine Trades Association. Our association has approximately 120 members, and our industry collectively contributes approximately $2.9 billion annually to the Maine economy. I also previously, my personal experience working in a boatyard and marina in Rockland for 12 years, where some of my responsibilities did include marina reservations and dock master duties. And just a side note, I have a sister who's a town clerk in Vermont, so I certainly respect all the challenges for town clerks and the important duties that they try to uphold. So upon reading the language of this bill, I did reach out to Representative Fay to better understand the intent and express my concerns for some of the unintended consequences that might come along with this with respect to boating tourism in our state. I had hoped to maybe come up with an agreeable amendment, but the topic is complex. I just want to say this gets complicated, so I'm going to sort of try to follow my written testimony here so I don't miss anything. So our industry, the boating industry, doesn't have a toll booth at the border, and this does apply to saltwater boats and freshwater boats, right? So we don't have a toll booth that helps us measure the boat traffic coming into our state. But I can easily vouch that the transient boaters coming in from other states are a critical part of the revenue in our short summer season. Some of the marinas receive most of their revenue from boats from away, including foreign flagged vessels coming from other countries. Many municipalities also collect nightly or weekly revenue from transient or tourist boaters who stay at town docks and moorings, and that revenue helps support their harbor infrastructure costs for both commercial and non-commercial vessels. So we're so fortunate that in Maine, it's a world-class cruising destination. Boaters often come for most of the summer when they do make the trip all the way up the coast. A 28-day limit for excise tax payment could include and potentially deter some of these tourists. Since they often move from harbor to harbor while they are here, where would they pay that excise tax? Another question is, how would it be tracked and enforced? Would a boat then going offshore outside a 3 nautical mile, let's say they're traveling between Portland and Bar Harbor, would that reset the calendar count for those 28 days? There's just many factors and questions that make this a complicated issue. To further add, a seasonal resident who's required to register their boat in Maine has up to 60 days to do so and would normally pay the prerequisite excise tax at the same time, like registering a car. This proposal would require them to pay excise tax over a month before having to pay their registration. Or it could mean they pay the excise tax, only pay the excise tax if they keep the boat, let's say in Maine, for just 50 days. So we asked the committee to consider if aligning or simplifying the process with registration a little bit more might get better payment results. And I'm sorry that there's people who outright refuse and are rude about it, but we also have residents with documented vessels that are exempt from registration fees who pay excise tax to the town where they keep their boat. But if a non-resident documented boat owner resides in another state, then the fee is paid to the main town where the boat's kept. So to add some complexity there, some boats are stored in one town. Let's say like you over winter, you keep it in a boat storage in Rockland, and then they keep it docked or moored in another town, let's say Camden, for over 75 days. So who do they pay? So in speaking with two members of the Harbor Masters Association, they made it sound like enforcement is really the challenge here. And some municipalities work hard at it and others do not. Some collect the excise tax at the same time that a mooring fee is collected, if they're renting the mooring from the city or town. But we don't believe that reducing the requirement from 75 days to 28 days will make enforcement any easier. In some cases, it might be even less obvious which vessel has been there for 29 days versus 76 days. If you saw a boat in a mooring area or on a lake all summer, it might stand out more than a boat that had just been there 29 days. So we can certainly understand the boat excise tax enforcement frustration in the state. We're not asking anyone to eliminate the tax, but we ask you not to support LD 1203 to avoid the risk of frustrating and or losing our critical transient boat traffic. And our association would certainly be willing to join the work session, a committee, a task force, or whoever to investigate alternative language or methods to help improve the collections from non-tourist boaters who should be paying the excise tax. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Kiefer. I appreciate that. Looks like we have questions. A question from Representative Bickford.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning. Do you know what currently the policy is in New Hampshire for, I mean, they have a great big lake, Winnipesaukee. I'm sure that they have the same issues we do. Are they 75 days? Are they 28 days? Do you have any clue?
I'm sorry, I don't have that information, Representative Bickford. Certainly can look into that. I follow a little bit more on sales tax on boats, as far as various states have eliminated or reduced their sales tax to be more competitive, but I'm sorry, I don't follow like their registration fees and excise tax fees, but certainly can help the committee find that information.
Madam Chair, if it's possible, could we get that information from someone for the work session?
Absolutely. Julie, you good with that? Yeah, great. Thank you, Representative. It looks like we have another question from Representative Perry.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for being here today with your testimony. All good, solid concerns, but my sense is the concerns you raise are legitimate, but different from maybe what the intent of this bill is. I mean, all our lakes and ponds in this state have been bought up by out-of-staters who come up, and 75 days is the whole boating season for all intents and purposes. So I think the intent is maybe people who are staying on a lake all summer and their poor neighbor from Maine next door is registering their boat, and they flaunting. To some extent, it sounds like that they don't have to. So I'm just hoping maybe there's that we can work with you and your organization to find a targeted solution that addresses what I think what sounded to me like the real problem is people who own camps on lakes from out of state and you know, are getting away with this.
Thank you very much. Any other questions for Ms. Kiefer? All right, seeing none, thank you very much for your testimony. We appreciate that. And thank you, Representative Fay, for bringing this to us. Seeing no one to speak for nor against, we will close the hearing on LD 1203. Next up is, let's see, where are we here? Next up is LD 1156. Our own Representative Bickford is going to just read the language for this so we can open the public hearing on it. And then that's pretty much it. Thanks, Representative Bickford. We appreciate it. Representative Murata is getting her vaccine shot today, so we want her where she is.
Thank you, and good morning, Representative Terry and members of the Taxation Committee. My name is Bruce Bickford. I represent House District 63, which is part of Auburn. LD 1156 is an act to reduce errors in employment tax increment financing benefits. And I'm going to ask that we possibly carry this after the public hearing.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Representative Bickford. I'm assuming nobody has any questions for Representative Bickford. The sponsor, it looks like we have Kate Foy from DECD here to speak about this. Welcome.
Good morning. Does it make sense for me to read the testimony or just share that we would support and actually made the request to carry the bill over?
Yeah, I think that's probably, I think
I know you have a busy day.
Yeah, to keep everybody's time short and knowing full well that this is something that you and the sponsor are working on.
Yeah, it is. And I did submit the testimony, Representative Terry. I think I submitted it through the portal. So all of the legislators should have access to our thoughts on that.
Right. And that is definitely there. I'm looking at it right now.
Great.
So without any opposition, unless there is opposition, let's close the hearing on LD 1156 that will be carried over to the next session where you guys have lots of time to work it out.
Great, thank you.
Thanks so much. Okay, next is, oh, my very own bill. Look at that. Next up is LD 1216. And this is an act to amend the state tax laws. This is some technical changes that we will hear about from the department. I hope nobody has any questions for me. Thank you very much. Seeing none, we'll invite Daniel D'Alessandro from Maine Revenue Service to come in and tell us all about this bill. Good morning still, Mr. D'Alessandro.
Hi, Senator Chipman, Representative Terry, and members of the Taxation Committee, good morning. I'm Daniel D'Alessandro, Staff Attorney for the Office of Tax Policy at Maine Revenue Services. I'm here today at the request of the administration to testify in support of LD 1216, an act to amend the state's tax laws. LD 1216 is legislation submitted by the Department of Administrative and Financial Services. As you know, Maine Revenue Services prepares one or more bills each year that propose changes to various existing provisions of Maine law, primarily in Title 36. The department has also submitted LD 141, an act to make technical changes to the tax laws. The difference between these bills is the nature of the recommendations. whereas LD 141 contains technical changes with little or no fiscal impact. This year, the Act to Amend contains two more significant substantive updates to the corporate income tax and service provider tax and COVID-19 pandemic-related tax changes, as well as the various minor but substantive improvements and clarifications that have been the focus of the bill in prior years. I will address some more substantive proposals in the Act to Amend and include in my testimony references to certain amendments that MRS is proposing. The digital streaming service provider tax proposal in Part F was initially proposed as part of the biennial budget, now Public Law 2021, Chapter 29. Consistent with the removal of the proposal from the biennial budget, the proposed committee amendment strikes Part F. I'm not sure if you have the proposed amendment yet, but you'll certainly have it by the work session.
If I can interrupt for just a second too, we can probably all follow along by reading the LD. Daniel, if you wouldn't mind just referencing the parts of the LD where what you're speaking to, we could probably all follow along pretty easily from there.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Thank you.
Part D of the bill proposes the COVID-19 pandemic tax provisions addressing the tax implications of telework, the Educational Opportunity Tax Credit, or EOTC, and other disaster-related changes. Because the telework and EOTC changes were enacted in the supplemental budget, Public Law 2021, Chapter 1, MRS is proposing an amendment to remove the emergency clause, remove the EOTC provision, and update the telework provision. I would like to briefly discuss the telework provision now. In response to the COVID-19 pandemic, Maine and other states declared states of emergency and issued temporary social distancing measures, work from home requirements and policies, and other travel and workplace restrictions. Consequently, during the pandemic period, some employees who had been working at a site in another state began working remotely from Maine, teleworking. This change of work location has potential tax ramifications. Maine Revenue Services took a number of administrative actions over the past year to minimize disruption and uncertainty and provide for tax stability. You should have an October MRS tax alert detailing those actions. If you don't have that yet, it'll be there for the work session. I won't go through them in detail now, but I would note that they cover the telework impacts on withholding, estimated tax payments and penalties, and income and sales tax nexus. However, there was one particularly important issue that could not be addressed under existing administrative authority. In an attempt to provide tax stability, Massachusetts and a small number of other states have changed the way they tax non-residents. Massachusetts issued a rule applicable for the pandemic period with the effect that it will tax Maine residents who used to physically commute into Massachusetts, but now work remotely from their home in Maine. This treatment deviates from the approach taken by most states, which only tax the wage of non-residents when they physically perform work in the state. This new assertion of jurisdiction by Massachusetts will result in both Maine and Massachusetts taxing the income of some Maine residents. For tax years beginning in 2020, the supplemental budget will ensure Maine residents avoid double taxation as a result of COVID-19 related telework by allowing the tax credit for income tax paid to another jurisdiction when the other jurisdiction is asserting an income tax obligation for the same income, despite the employee no longer physically working in that jurisdiction. The proposed committee amendment for the Act to Amend before you now would extend this tax treatment to tax years beginning in 2021. I'd like to address now the corporate income tax update contained in Part E. It is a corporate income tax proposal often referred to as factor presence nexus. This legislation was proposed last year as part of LD 2011, an act to update certain provisions in the income tax and service provider tax laws. While that bill received a divided report from this committee, this proposal was contained in both the minority and majority reports. Ultimately, the bill was one of a number of bills that was not acted upon by the 129th legislature because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Party clarifies and simplifies Maine's corporate income tax by establishing objective, clearly defined thresholds as a practical structure for the current general economic nexus standard. As you may remember, the state was long prohibited from collecting sales tax from vendors with no physical presence in the state. In June 2018, this prohibition was removed by the US Supreme Court decision in South Dakota versus Wayfair, wherein the court approved South Dakota's sales tax nexus law, applying clear objective nexus thresholds without regard to physical presence. Maine and nearly all other sales tax states followed suit. However, for income tax purposes, Maine and many other states have long taken the position that economic nexus, even in the absence of physical presence, is sufficient for corporate income tax jurisdiction. Broadly speaking, under Maine's economic nexus standard, a taxpayer is nexus with the state based on the taxpayer's purposeful direction of business activity toward the state. This economic nexus approach to corporate income tax in Maine and other states significantly predated the Wayfair decision. Prior to Wayfair, some states took the approach of using nexus thresholds, often referred to as factor presence thresholds, bringing greater clarity, objectivity, and consistency to their nexus standards. The Wayfair decision, removing the physical presence requirement for sales tax and approving in its place the use of nexus thresholds, highlights the benefits of adopting clear nexus thresholds and lends support to the similar adoption of nexus thresholds in corporate income tax. According to a recent checkpoint analysis, 10 other states have adopted factor presence for corporate income tax, and 2 other states use a factor presence standard for gross receipts or gross margins business taxes. This bill applies so-called factor presence thresholds, clarifying the minimum activity, which, when surpassed by a corporation, subject the corporation to the Maine corporate income tax. In addition, the thresholds create a safe harbor for corporations with only modest activity in the state that would nonetheless have nexus under current law. The annual minimum threshold for multi-state business established by this part are $250,000 of property, $250,000 of payroll, or $500,000 of sales in Maine, or alternatively, 25% of total annual property, payroll, or sales in Maine,
Are you planning to continue?
as determined under the state's current apportionment law. In order to give taxpayers sufficient time to react to this change, the annual minimum thresholds apply to tax years beginning on or after January 1st, 2022. These clear income tax nexus thresholds will benefit taxpayers by allowing them to more confidently ascertain their compliance requirements and by providing safe harbors for activity below the threshold amounts. In addition to providing increased clarity and predictability to taxpayers, these thresholds will provide a simpler basis for efficient tax administration while having only a minor impact on state revenue. It is important to note that a federal law, commonly referred to as Public Law 86-272, prohibits state income taxation in certain circumstances defined in that law and described in more detail by state rule. Maine provides a subtraction modification for the income the state is prohibited from taxing under the US Constitution, including income that is protected under Public Law 86-272. This subtraction modification is unaffected by this legislation and would continue to apply in accordance with federal law and the corresponding state subtraction modification. The possible impact of this proposal on Public Law 86-272 was discussed in this committee last session, ultimately resulting in a committee amendment explicitly affirming that Public Law 86-272 is unaffected. That amendment is part of this proposal. You should have or will receive soon a proposed committee amendment, as well as a chart prepared by MRS that breaks down each provision of the bill and the amendment and matches them with the corresponding paragraphs from the summary section. This side-by-side chart provides a brief explanation of each provision of the bill. I and other staff from MRS will be available at the work session to assist the committee with its work on the bill, and I can go through the side-by-side then. I can take your questions now or wait to address any particular questions you might have at the work session.
Great, thank you very much, Mr. D'Alessandro. Anybody have any questions so far? I know it's a lot to digest. You should all have received an email from Julie while we were in our meeting that has Mr. D'Alessandro's testimony, and I believe those charts are in there as well. So definitely take a look at that prior to the work session if you don't have any questions right now. Julie.
Yes, I'll just also mention that the chart and the proposed amendment are also posted online on the committee's website. They're posted as one document, so it just says proposed amendment right now, but I think I'm going to ask that it be changed to being in two documents, so the chart would be in a separate document from the proposed amendment, but they are online if committee members or members of the public want to look at them listed under the LD number on the Taxation Committee website.
Gotcha. So if you want it all in one document, right now is the time to do it and save it onto your computer. All right, terrific. Thank you, Mr. D'Alessandro, for your testimony. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
That closes the hearing on LD, let's see, 1216. Again, I think I'd just like to throw out there that this is something that this is essentially the same thing that we saw with a few tweaks over the summer for those of us who are returning. So any questions that new members may have, you can probably ask one of us too, and we can help you walk you through some of it. I think that is it for public hearings. Julie, you have some extra work for us today? No, not today.
I have two amendments that to be reviewed, which I can do either today or at another time if you prefer.
Today would be great. Let's do that.
Okay. Let me share here. Okay. Okay, this is the amendment review for LD 168, which is an act to provide a tax break for businesses that employ people with disabilities. This is Senator Guerin's bill. It was originally a concept draft. She provided a proposed amendment at either the public hearing or the work session, and this language that's included in the amendment is the same as what was in as her proposed amendment. So this is the one that relates to employers who employ persons who are disabled who under federal law might be eligible for a sub-minimum wage and would provide a state credit because the sub-minimum wage is not permitted in Maine to essentially reimburse the employer for the difference between what they would have been permitted to pay under federal law. And the fiscal note indicates that Maine law prevents the payment of a sub-minimum wage. Department of Labor has indicated it's very unlikely that the federal government would review because they would have to do it under this amendment. But there are no appropriations or allocations required, and there is no indication of what revenue would be involved. This is a minority report, I believe, of the committee.
Yeah. So I was just gonna ask anybody if anybody on the minority side was interested, making sure that that was all okay with you guys. Seeing no hands, I'm going to assume that that is correct, and that is check one. And then we have a second amendment review, correct, Julie?
Yes, but I seem not have gotten it in line yet. If you want to bear with me for just a second here.
Sure, I can.
sorry. I thought I had it all set up. And I need to go.
If you're looking for it, it's LD 538.
Yeah, I'm just trying to, it's in a number of places, so I'm looking at the easiest way to get into it here. I'm going through the website, which I think is the easiest. Enlarging, and now let's see. There it is. No, go away. Forgot to stop sharing the other one. Okay, you should now be seeing amendment review for LD 538. This is a fiscal note only amendment. And again, I'm pretty sure this is the minority report. I mean, perhaps not. No, well, I'm not sure what the vote ended up being, but it was a 6-5 report. This was the 5, so I'm not sure if this is the minority or not after everyone has voted. But this is a bill to exempt trailers sold to out-of-state entities from sales and use tax. And the only amendment was the fiscal note. And this bill incorporates the fiscal note, which indicates a revenue impact of 104,500 in the first year, escalating to 124,545 in the fourth year. There's no appropriations or allocations required. There's just the revenue impact.
All right, any concerns about this one? All right, then check box number 2. Looks like we're all set, Julie.
Okay, so I will assume that those are okay to send for further along their way. They will come out of the revisor's office to the clerk for purposes of being reported out.
Fantastic, thank you. And then 2 things for me again. The technical language and Daniel's chart is in an email from Julie from 9:59 this morning. So if you guys could please review that prior to the work session. And then the last thing I have anyway is we all received from OPEGA the proposed evaluation parameters for the R&D credit and for the historic tax credit. I also sent an email out to everybody yesterday. Julie, you can stop sharing your screen if you'd like.
I'm trying to get to that screen where I can click on something that tells me I can stop sharing, and for some reason I'm not getting it.
No worries, no worries. I think I can still see everybody in case there's any questions. Anyway, so this is these are the parameters that OPEGA are going to use or are intending to use to complete their reports on the research expense tax credit and the main historic renovation tax credits. We have, we've been part of this conversation over the past few weeks about the effectiveness of these reports and the tax committee being able to review them, making sure that we have the all the information that we want to have researched while they're doing their report. If we could all please go through the proposed parameters and really read through and make sure that there's that all of your questions are answered, that you want answered from the purpose of these tax credits. And if there's anything on these lists that you think is maybe just a little too much or not enough, we really want to hear what everybody's thoughts are on this so we can streamline the process as best as possible. Senator Chipman and I listened in on the Government Oversight Committee's conversation about tax expenditure reviews. on Friday, and it's pretty clear that that the OPEGA reports take a lot of work and a lot of time, and sometimes we find ourselves waiting for reports to be finished in order to determine whether or not legislation needs to be changed. You know, with the short period of time we all have in office at any one given moment, it makes it really difficult for us to get all of the information that we need before legislation is trying to be changed for it. Again, this is going to be a long process, I think, but I think for us on the tax committee specifically, being able to read through these proposed parameters and understanding what it is these folks need to do to get the job done, we may be able to help them streamline that. So please look through and read through. We will have Lucia Nixon from OPEGA with us in a week, I think, a week from today, right, Julie?
Yes.
We can ask her some more questions about these. And then, but I would love it if we could give her some information going forward when we do see her next week. So maybe we can revisit this particular subject on Wednesday or Thursday of this week to make sure that we are prepared for her on Tuesday. So does a day sound okay, or would you guys all like 2 days? Should we get back to this on Thursday, or we can do this tomorrow after public hearings? Up to you guys. I'd love to hear.
I have a tough time being in tax most of Wednesday because I do have another committee that I'm part of. So I'd prefer Thursday if at all possible for the discussion. I did listen in to the report on Friday, to the GOC committee meeting on Friday. So I love the materials that come out of it. I mean, they're very helpful and thoughtful, but it takes forever. And there's got to be a way to streamline this material so that we can get it in a more timely fashion to answer the questions that we have about whether or not the tax policy that has been implemented is functioning in the way that we would like to see it function.
Absolutely. Representative Gramlich?
Thanks, Madam Chair. And I agree with Rep. Matlack, and I wouldn't presume to speak for Rep. Hanley, but I know he and I both have another committee that we're committed to on Wednesday. So I know for me, it makes it really challenging. So I would appreciate this work on Thursday.
Yeah, absolutely. Representative Bickford?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, Thursday's fine with us also.
Okay, terrific. Great. Okay, so Julie, we can maybe pick through this on Thursday after our public hearing. That'd be great. Great.
Sure.
Okay. Also, just a general announcement, starting, I think it's the week of the 27th, we're going to be meeting in the afternoon as well to do some public hearings. Right, work sessions in the morning and public hearings in the afternoon. We have not so much catch up, but we have quite a bit of work ahead of us, and to make sure that we're done close to on time. We will not be done on time, but close to on time. We need to add some afternoons. So if anybody has any issues with that, if you can let myself, Senator Chipman, Avery, or Julie, or the four of us know, that would be great. Other than that, I think we're good to go. Anybody else have any announcements or anything they want to talk about? All good? All right, terrific. Well, thanks for your time, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow at 9 a.m.